There's been a big change in the Orange County market in the last 2 weeks. This is Dean Odell with Seven Gables Real Estate and the Odell Group. Today is February 6th, and we're finally starting to maybe see where the direction of this is going. So stay tuned. We're going to look at some data and we're going to talk about it. We're going to get started right now. Okay, so this is the typical trend for a winter market, which is what we're in right now. Let's see how our data compares to this typical trend. On our next slide, we're going to start with listing inventory. So if we look at this chart, we are on the red line, okay? And what was so unusual about 2 weeks ago, if you guys were listening, and before that, I kept saying it's a little early to really kind of sense where this market's going. We almost have to get through January and maybe a little bit of February because it started out really strange. And my theory, if you recall, was that it was kind of a weird holiday because it was in the middle of the week. And I just felt like that people were just on vacation. It was different, than most years. And if we look at that red line, it indicates how it was different. You could see it just shot up inventory. And so we were like, wow, look at inventory, that red line shooting up. It's not like anything else we've seen in a long time, right? And then you see the bend in it. And now we're getting back to kind of maybe a gradual increase in inventory, which almost looks similar when you look at those lines to what normally happens just shooting out of January. And you can see how those numbers translate today. I mean, we have 2,821 homes in the market, which is up from 2 weeks ago and way up from last year, almost 900 homes more in the market this year, which is great. We can use that inventory, and we're going to talk about what effect that's having on the market. But even so, if you look at that 3-year average prior to 2020, the pre-COVID years, we used to have 4,843 homes on average at this time of year. So looking at demand, again, the red line, you can kind of see how it's overlapping and it's hitting this inflection point, which we'll see in the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks, whether it follows this same trend as the other demand lines, where all of a sudden we'll see this increase in demand. We have definitely seen an increase in demand, and you can see that in the red line, but not as steep as what we're used to over that same time period. But let's talk about what happened in the last 30 days. Right now, we have 1,340 homes that have gone into escrow in the last 30 days as compared to 2 weeks ago when it was 988. And if we look at where we are from last year, we're at 1,290. So remember, we have all those extra homes, about 900 homes, okay, but we only have about 50 more sales for those 900 homes. So that means that this is going to have an effect on the market. If we look at where we were on a 3-year average, our demand was 2,160 prior to COVID. So we can see that we're still way down from that. We're what? 1,340, we're almost 800 homes down less from that. But if you remember from the inventory, we're still way down on the historical inventory, which was 4,843 versus 2,008. So we're almost 2,000 homes less for that. So now we're looking at the Orange County expected marketing time year over year, and we are on that red line. And if you see, we did shoot up because the market was slowing down due to that abnormality in the first 30 days. And now we're starting to see a correction where it's becoming more similar to what we've seen in previous years, right? So today we're seeing the expected marketing time has dropped in the last 30 days. It's at 63 days versus 84 days 2 weeks ago versus 45 days last year. So we're slower than last year, but we are quicker than 2 weeks ago, right? So that was a pretty big drop. We almost dropped 20 days based on the supply and demand, how they relate to each other. And if we look at the 3-year average prior to 2020, you could see it was 70 days. So we're actually kind of getting closer to that average. We'll have to see what the data brings out in the next 2 to 4 weeks. But right now, what you can see is we are in a market that's going to be moving slower than last year. And it feels that way with boots on the ground as well. If you look at where 70 days leaves us, that leaves us in a slight seller's market. You can see at the top of that chart, but you have to pay attention to what's going on in your own price range. So that's what we're going to look at next. I tell people all the time, you might want to freeze this slide. There's a lot of seller's market is up to about 1.5 million, a slight seller's market up to about 2.5, a slight buyer's market that is now beginning at 2.5 million, which we're calling the new luxury market because obviously prices have moved up. So if you look at this, you'll see it's a slight buyer's market. It's taking about 132 days between those price ranges of 2.5 and 4 million. And you can see there's about 13% of the inventory and only 6% of the demand. And if we compare that to last year, we can't make a comparison because last year the luxury market was not 2.5, it was 2 million. So it's kind of a combination of these two last brackets here that we've been looking at. And then if you go to the deep buyers market, you can see that's anything over $4 million and the time that it's taking versus last year. So that said, I'm going to move to my advice for buyers and sellers in the 2025 market based on what we're seeing right now. So let's do that. Okay, so what did those charts show us? They basically showed us that we are returning to a more normal market cycle, right? We have active inventory up, we have demand up, and we have expected marketing time going down. So the direction that everything is going right now reflects a normal winter market. We did have a blip there at the beginning, which we discussed, and it seems to be correcting itself. But obviously, we're going to need more data to see what's going on in the next, few weeks to months, right? To see what's happening. Are we going into a normal spring type of market or what? Well, I can tell you from having the team and people being out there on open houses and us showing property and everything else, that includes myself, that the demand is there. You can go by open houses, you can see cars lined up. It's not the flurry that it was, obviously, of years past in 21 and 22 when there were 10, 15 offers on everything. But I'll tell you what, don't think that you're the only buyer out there because you're not. We know rates are at close to 7%, and that's going to probably level demand because there's only so many people that can afford these houses at these kind of interest rates, right? So depending on what you believe could happen in the economy, do you believe rates could lower? Because if rates lower, that's just going to bring more demand for housing, okay? It might also bring more inventory. The one thing we definitely know is that ratio of inventory to demand has increased. In other words, there's more houses for buyers than there has been in a long time. So that's good news for buyers, but just understand that there's still a lot of people that want homes. We're living in a county of 3 million people and there's, less than 3,000 homes on the market. So there's other people out there. I don't think we're going to see a huge jump up in prices. They're predicting this year to be fairly consistent and like maybe, 3% or something like that. Not some big jump. But again, all we can do is go off the data. I'll tell you what we're seeing out there, and it's still a little early. Probably going to need another 2 weeks to a month to kind of really get a sense on the direction of where things are going. Then I want to give my advice to sellers. Sellers, because it is taking longer to sell your homes, what does that mean? That means you got to start sooner. Okay. Now, an aggressively priced home or a well-priced home will certainly get multiple offers, 2, 3 offers, probably in the first few weeks if it's presented properly, if it's marketed properly. And that's what our job is to create as much demand for the home as possible. And we're super good at that. I mean, all the advertising you see from all these different agents that say everything's free, no hassles, no hidden fees, all this kind of stuff that's out there. There's nothing new about that. All the top teams are going to operate like that. They have services, they're going to provide services. What really makes the differences is something that you need to interview us to understand how we compare to our competition, okay? Because once we lay it out for you, most people see it right away, okay? Because there's things that we're doing that other people aren't doing. So give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about it. We'll get those houses prepped. We'll get you the most money. We're very good at getting the most money for our clients because we got a lot of experience, a lot of negotiation skills. Got about 3,000 homes under my belt now. So let's go ahead and have a meeting, give us a call, and we will see you on the next Tustin Talks in 2 weeks, and we'll see what this market's doing. Okay, wait a minute. Don't leave yet. I messed up. I forgot to tell you guys, we have a new home value estimator online. As a matter of fact, you could type it into your browser right now. It's called odellestimator.com. It's going to give you a full dashboard and 3 different valuations. It's actually pretty darn good, Now, some of the custom homes, bigger lots, all that kind of stuff like that might not be quite as accurate of information, but the only way you're going to get a proper estimation or an accurate one is to have us out. But this is still something that's kind of interesting to look at because it gives you a lot of information. So go ahead and type OdellEstimator.com into your browser or scan the QR code below. And that's all I've got for today. So I will see you next time in about 2 weeks. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.